Man, it's been a week. Been a lot of volatility, and honestly, we are living in such a transformational time. Just real quick, want to know, is the mic coming through clearly? You can hear me? We're all good?
Yes, sir.
All right, awesome. So, just real quick, for those of you that may not know me, I'm looking through the chat right now, and even for those of you that have your cameras on, I see a lot of familiar faces and names, but there are definitely a few of you that I don't know yet. As Junior mentioned, my name is Zachary Hogan. I got started with trading back in 2013. Between now and then, there's been a lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of blown accounts, a lot of lessons, right? We were joking in the chat about what is it that's really going to help you learn, that's going to make it stick. And honestly, these markets, they are, in my opinion, one of the best ways for you to get to know yourself. I think it's so funny because when I first got started in this industry, I came in with a very specific mindset, and I want to see if this can resonate and relate with those of you that are here with us right now, because I feel like the trader's journey, even though we come from different places, we have different backgrounds, ethnicities, preferences, all of that. The journey itself, it actually looks relatively similar, regardless of the process that you go through. So, just real quick in the chat, have you ever found yourself chasing trades at a FOMO just to get stopped out? Or have you found yourself looking at the chats? You see this person popping off and that person popping off, and it seems like everyone else around you is winning, but you're sitting there feeling stuck, feeling frustrated, wondering, why am I not where I thought I was going to be yet? I know for some of you that have been in the game now for a year, 2 years, 3 years, or more, you had specific goals and expectations that you set out for yourself when you first got started. And what happens when you haven't been able to rise to that level yet is you get frustrated. You get hard on yourself. And I think it's so powerful being able to achieve that level of clarity for yourself without having to depend on anybody else. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to trading, it's you versus you. Doesn't matter what educator you resonate with, doesn't matter what strategy you choose to use, doesn't matter what you believe about the markets. At the end of the day, it's you versus you. You're the one that presses the button, you're the one that has to take responsibility for the results, and you're the one that has to live with the outcome, whether it's in alignment with what you wanted and what you expected, or whether it's completely over here and you're sitting there scratching your head thinking, man, these markets, they are out to get me. And drop a seven if you've ever had that thought that the markets are out to get you. That it almost feels like any time you take a trade, maybe not every time, but that there are times where you take the trade and it's almost just like the market has a homing device that is going literally to hit your stop and take you out, and you make it personal. That happened to me this week. I'll show just a real quick example here, because even being 13 years into this, the reality is I still experience times where, you know, the market literally comes in and it hunts me. So real quick, can you see the chart? Are we good? Just let me know. Drop a one if it is good. It's like the Zoom interface is a little bit different since the last time that I used it. All right, cool. So, for those of you that had tuned into the New York market open sessions this week, you probably remember that this was a setup that we were looking for yesterday when we were here on Wednesday. And it was just a very straightforward setup. We were taking a look at this last 4 hour down candle here coming into New York market open, that ideal time. And we essentially just wanted to see price drive down into this area. And then we wanted to be able to look for those potential buys. Now, I wanted to be a little bit more flexible with this setup for this week. And so rather than taking the standard approach that I teach of looking for an entry anywhere between the open of that last down candle before the shift within the structure to the midpoint. Okay, so framing it up with the entry like that, and then putting the stop below the close. Because of how the risk to reward lined up for this particular setup, what I thought was going to be a little bit more reasonable was to actually shift that stop a little bit lower. And the trade that I ended up planning for looked something like this. So very straightforward. Target inside of the imbalance, nice clean 1 to 3 setup, stop below this wick, entry within the same relative zone. And we are, of course, able to come in and break it down and look at, the hourly structure. And that's part of what we were doing with this particular setup this week. Now, it's interesting because the entry was on point. And for those of you that were, you know, tuning in with the session and allowing yourself to align with this particular move is crazy because literally that scenario that I was just describing of where it feels like the market is out to get you. Following hour, it literally, it freaking wicked me. And I'm sitting there looking in the chats, and this was my sentiment for all the people celebrating that they were still in the gold trade. Because for those of you that have watched gold, you'll know what happened. It literally absolutely ripped to the upside. We saw one of the largest wicks within the gold market that we've seen in quite some time. I mean, hundreds of pips that really ran right up through the week's open. Right, we had those equal highs here right at the open. So I want you to think about this right now from a psychological perspective, because this is incredibly important. And this is part of what we're going to be diving into even deeper when we're with you in the California event. Think about all the people that sold at the beginning of the week, the people that were able to get in there, snipe that entry near the high of the week, the people that were able to get in a little bit later on Tuesday during the London session, somewhere in here. What do you do when price action hits your entry and moves in your direction 50, 60, 70, 100 plus pips? What do you typically do with your positions? I know for me, once it gets to a certain point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move that stop loss to break even and drop at 3 if that's something that you do as well. Because I know that for most people, the idea of leaving risk on the table when the market has already given you more than enough, it really doesn't make sense. And yeah, you know, that's one way of looking at it, Jordan. But the reality is for most people, they're going to go ahead, they're going to move that stop. So in one move, we have price action number one, taking out those buyers, right? Buyers like me that decided, you know what, this wick is a little bit more flexible and a little bit more reasonable than how I would typically approach this, but even then, it still wasn't enough. Also, simultaneously taking out all those sellers only to find ourselves this morning right back down at that same area, and the New York market opens up and we come down and we take the lows. And of course, as the day has continued, we found ourselves literally right back in the middle of the range. So whether you were buying gold this week, whether you were selling gold this week, I saw some comments in the chat, gold being toxic. It's like the reality is the market doesn't care about you. The market doesn't care about me at the end of the day. And it was very refreshing. I was talking with Jordan about a couple of things, and he sent me this video the other night, and it was a training that I had watched a couple of years back. But the takeaway was that the market by nature is going to move in the way that hurts the most amount of people. Because think about it. The big players, the institutions, the big money, they can't trade in the same way as you and me. They can't pull up a chart at any time of the day and just boop, tap the button and they're in the trade. They have to generate liquidity. They have to allow the orders to build up. And that's why one of the key things that's at the center of what it is that we do is we ask ourselves, where is the money? When you're able to align yourself with that idea, you're able to then shift away from that victim mentality of, man, the market is out to get me. Because at the end of the day, all that's happening is we're seeing these different candlestick patterns. We're seeing these different type of movements that seem manipulative. They're being designed to engineer emotional traps. And that, my friends, it keeps you stuck. It keeps you frustrated and it keeps you on this vicious cycle of feeling like, man, no matter what it is that I do, no matter how hard it is that I work at this, it just doesn't feel like I'm making progress. Because I can tell you time and time again, especially in the first 5 years of my trading journey, it almost felt like I would take 2 steps forward. I would start going on a winning streak. I would start, getting some money out of the markets. And then all of a sudden, boom, blown account again. And so it was 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, and I'm right where I started. And it was like, what is happening? And it wasn't until I really started to get clear on why it was that I was trading to begin with that I began to uncover these emotional traps, like the confirmation bias, ignoring the red flags for when the setup just wasn't there and I wasn't really feeling it. But hey, you know what? I decided to take the trade. For being able to start to recognize that I had a loss aversion within myself, where I found myself closing out of my winners too early and holding on to the losses way too long, hoping that they were going to turn around. I had to allow myself to break these bad habits. And trust me, it is not easy to break a habit because at the end of the day, if you think about it, from the time that you were young, from the very first time that you got introduced to any sort of education, you've been conditioned to think a certain type of way, to act a certain type of way, to be told when you can show up, what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to do it. So to get involved in the financial markets, literally the largest financial industry in the world as it exists today, why would it be easy for you to be able to, quote, master a skill set in an industry that moves trillions of dollars every single day when you have years of experience and conditioning behind you that you have to unlearn first in order to come into this market with a clear space to be able to actually start building a solid foundation using the framework that we teach to be able to start generating more of the results that it is that you're wanting. How many times in your trading journey have you found yourself going on tilt? If you don't know what that means, let me explain it to you really quickly. Going on tilt looks something like this. Sunday, market opens, maybe you don't look at it. Monday morning hits, something looks really, really nice. Maybe an idea comes through the chat, or maybe something gets sent out on the Zinrai Lives. You take the setup, you're up. Monday was great. Tuesday, New York market open. Boom, another banger setup, 100 points on NASDAQ. Wednesday, you say, you know what, I'm not going to trade today. Thursday comes around and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, you know what, I got some money to risk. I'm up this week. Let me go ahead and let me try to take something because I got this itch that I want to scratch and I need to just press the button. And then what happens? That loss hits. And you find yourself barely in profit now for the week. And those thoughts start racing through your head and you say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take one more trade today so that I can just get back to where I was before I had that loss. And then what happens? You take another L. Thursdays used to be your doomsday. Man, now you're in drawdown for the week. You started up, you were feeling great, you felt like you were on top of the world, and now it's Thursday. We've got less than 24 hours until the weekend, and you're sitting there thinking, well, man, I don't know. I don't know what happened. And it's this vicious cycle that until you make the decision to break it, You're going to continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over again, and it might look different, but trust me, it's going to feel the same way each and every single time. So you really have to allow yourself to have the opportunity to grow through this process. It's not something that you're going to master in a couple of days. It's not something that you're going to master probably within this lifetime. Because the reality is, you can get really, really good at trading both sides of the markets. And there's a very big difference between trading and investing. Some of my best trades have been investments that I made back in 2019, 2020, when we were diving into the crypto space very, very heavily, blockchain gaming. Some of the projects that Jordan and I were able to share live at workshops like the one that we're going to be doing with y'all in California. We don't even need to talk about how much they moved. It was some of the best decisions that I've made in my entire career still today. But at the same time, it wasn't something where I just woke up one day and it's like, oh, sweet, market moved 100 pips, 200 pips, 300 pips, right? There is a difference between the trading and the investment side of this. And so, my suggestion for each and every single one of you between now and the workshop that we're going to be having, two things. Number one, really get clear on what challenges you're having right now. And there's going to be a little bit of an opportunity tonight where we can kind of discuss some of that as well, with Jordan. But really get clear on what you feel like is holding you back between wherever it is that you're at right now in your trading process and where it is that you envision yourself being. So that's the first step. The second thing that I highly encourage each and every single one of you to do, and this is something that you can start tonight. If you're not doing it already, document your process. And the reason why is because the more data that you have to work with, whether you prefer to use physical journals, whether you prefer to print things out, whether you prefer to use systems like Notion, or even if you just take the Jordan approach and you've got a folder on your computer with a bunch of screenshots and you're just building on that time and time again. The reality is, the more data that you have, the easier it's going to be for you to be able to notice what isn't working so you can then begin to course correct. See, I kind of think of it like this. When you get in your car, majority of the time, you've got a specific destination that you're going to drive to, right? Sure, it's nice every now and then to just hop in the car and just start driving with no particular destination in mind. But when you're going somewhere that you've never visited before, if you're like me, the first thing you probably do is pull up the GPS, right? You got to type in, this is where I'm going, and the GPS is going to help navigate you to where it is that you want to go. And every right turn that you make, every highway that you got to get on, these highways here in Dallas be crazy. I can only imagine what it's like out in Cali right now. It's been a couple of years since I've been out to like LA, but I remember the last time that I was there, I remember driving. I don't remember the specific highway, like what route it was, but we were road tripping a little bit more north past Fresno. And I remember driving through this highway, and it was like we were going down a mountain, and there were 18 wheelers on the left and on the right, just like zooming. And there was that feeling of like, oh man, I am so grateful that we've got this navigation system that's going to help get me to where it is that I need to go. It's the same thing with trading. The more data that you have to work with, the easier it's going to be for you to be able to get to that next level because you can course correct in real time. And trust me, this space, it moves so quickly. Just thinking about the markets as a whole, I mean, we're literally at a time right now where just today, a couple of hours ago, the Genius Act, for those of you that have been following the crypto space, that passed the House. It's going to be signed into legislation most likely tomorrow. If you don't know what the Genius Act is, it's basically setting a standard for stable coins. Why are stable coins important? It allows more liquidity to come into the markets. It's so fascinating to me to think about how much opportunity is around us each and every single day. But the reality is, just because there's opportunity doesn't mean that it's the opportunity that you're supposed to trade. You got to think about risk to reward. You got to think about who it is that you are, your personality, your preferences, your level of experience. And trust me when I say this, even though I've been studying smart money and I've been locked in, and someone like Jordan, for example, I've had the opportunity to work pretty closely with him now for the last 9, 10 years. We've studied very similar things. We've done tons of workshops together. We're growing, we're maturing, but we still see things a little bit differently. And I think that some of the most fun times that I've ever had, whether it was on a live session or whether it was in a workshop, was where we kind of argued back and forth and played the devil's advocate. Because at the end of the day, what it is, when you're able to really understand what it is that you're doing and why, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks or what anybody else's opinion is, because you have built that level of trust within yourself. And that, my friends, is really what allows you to have the confidence when you approach these markets. So I'm super excited for the workshop. There were a couple of things that I didn't want to dive too deep in during my time when I'm talking with you right now. But if you've ever wondered why things happen in the way that they do, if you want more insight into this whole idea of the puppet masters or the composite man, this mysterious way that the markets make these moves. And potentially we may have a couple of ideas on what the future may hold, and some ways that we can trade and invest, take advantage of that too. If you haven't already, make sure that you get your ticket. And for those of you that are asking, when are we going to come out to other cities that we, aren't going to for this particular tour? I mean, hey, build it. If there's a demand, we will come. But I want to go ahead and, I know Jordan's on here as well. What's good, brother? How you doing? I know you've been having fun this week.
Oh yeah, this week's been fun. ETH is about to hit its equal highs. That's cool. Just watching that go up makes me
Man,
happy.
it's really, I'm really happy that we're having the opportunity to do workshops together again, because I'll never forget the very first one that we did together back in Vegas in 2016.
Is that
Like,
the fire
like,
marshal one?
yes.
Oh my.
Yes, but just like seeing the growth, not just within, you know, myself or within yourself as like an individual, but within the understanding of the markets and what they actually are and how it is that we can take advantage of them. Would you agree that between then and now, even though you're trading pretty much the same thing, you've added some things here and there like volume and whatnot, but would you agree that even though you've grown and the markets have changed, it still kind of feels the same as it was back in 2016, 17, 18, with a little bit more volatility?
Man, I don't know about going back to 2016. I felt like a new I remember graduating baby pips and then getting into like something called it was called the shark method. And I remember I was having to stay up for hours and hours and just watch until it was like four different indicators crossing this one point and it would make a shark fin and then I would finally fire. It was like Price had to get out of the Bollinger Band, it had to cross some TDI something. I don't remember what the indicators were called. And so if you just you so it's like I would sit there for like 4 or 5 hours straight just watching it. And you would look away, go to the bathroom, something like that, come back, and it just happened. I'd be so mad. So it's been. I would say maybe into like 2018 starting. Because I would say 2017, 2018 was like the real path of going down everything. Because it's like We found y'all, and that was like the beginning of shaping that whole different thinking. But it was so hard because it was just a series of recorded videos. It was like the only live action that we would get is NFP every single month. That was it. So it's like we had, our little NFP event with y'all that we got to sit there and watch and see live action every single time, and minds were blown, but it was just the same recorded stuff. I don't think y'all understand like how amazing it is now with everything. Like I would give anything to be able to start back then with the things that are here with just the record or like the live sessions all the time. Like it's just such a game changer. But sorry, I don't want to get off to rambling on that. But yeah, man, this whole journey, this whole thing, it's been a beautiful ride. Dewey Cox story, pun intended. Beautiful ride.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. And, for everybody that's here right now, we used to joke about how Jordan would be out in the bushes. And I mean, I've seen you more on camera this year than I think between like 2019 and 2014. Like
Hey, it's another thing. It's like, I remember you living pretty much at my parents' house. Remember that? And it was when
Oh
we
yeah.
first started streaming, and I would hide behind you because I'd be so nervous about getting on camera and streaming. So I remember all of that. So it's like the same thing. If you're camera shy, believe me, it fades. It fades with confidence. That's how it faded with me. You get to a point to where it's like you can't tell me this doesn't work. You just can't tell me anymore. You just can't. And so because of the confidence, I'll argue on camera, off camera, in front of somebody. It doesn't matter. And so yeah, it's definitely been a game changer. I've never been on social media as much as I have until this year. So
Well, so I know that we're gonna kind of open it up for some questions as well for those of y'all that are here right now. But before we do, what I want to ask of you and a question that I have for you is, in your opinion, what was it that really allowed you to gain that confidence, right? Like not just in yourself, but in your trading. Like for the people that are brand new right now or that have been doing this for a year, 2 years, 3 years, that are going through it and they're not where they want to be just yet. What suggestions would you have for them to be able to have that breakthrough that comes with time?
gains. That's what it was. It's just you know, it's seeing the results over and over again because it's like it starts with it's like remember your first profitable trade. You get excited, then you lose. Then your first profitable week, then you give it all back. Your first profitable month, you're actually building a P&L cushion. So it's time, it's progression, and then years go by, and then your net worth grows, and then it grows, and your investments grow, and you're doing insane things, insane calls, and it's just working. You got to give yourself time. From my first time investing in anything, which was a failed Bitcoin purchase, to investing in Tesla in 2013, till starting doing all this 2016. Like if you just think about it, it's now, I don't know, thir 13, 14 years, 13, something like that. So it's time. And if you're super young, you have all the time in the world. Time is on your side the younger you are. I remember even talking to someone the other day, and they were telling me about funds being an issue. But then it's like you were talking about Sandbox. That only took $50. You could find $50 on the street, you know? So it's just like time is on your side. The hardest part is getting that net worth going. And then the hardest part is once the net worth is going is not fumbling and pissing it away. You know what I mean? So it's like time's on your side with your net worth growing, as long as you don't screw up and give it back in somehow, some way, which can be, it doesn't even have to be losses. I've seen so many people come up and give it all away in a luxury lifestyle, impressing people that you don't even talk to anymore. They don't even care, just doing all of that. So it's like once you get that net worth ball rolling, it becomes easier and easier after that. It's like the same thing with trades. Once your size ends up being a certain size, partials become actually nice, So it just give yourself time. The biggest thing. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's
I
what
definitely
changes.
agree. I
That's what
definitely
changes
agree.
is the gains, is confidence. Um,
Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point about the whole idea of as you are growing, not giving it back. And when we say smart money, yeah, it's specific concepts, specific techniques, specific ways of looking at the market and interpreting it through the eyes of what the big players need to do. But you also got to think about it from the perspective that, smart money literally means learning how to be smart with your money. And trust me, I made a lot of mistakes. I've been down on myself. There have been times where you sit there and it's like, man, oh man. And at the end of the day, again, it comes back to that whole idea of being honest with yourself and just where it is that you're at right now, remembering that even if you're not where you want to be, if you think about the difference between where you first started, the things that you understood about the world, yourself, money, all of it, and you compare that to where it is that you are today, I would bet that each and every single one of you that are here right now would be able to confidently say, you know what? Yeah, I've grown. I've progressed. I've experienced change within that amount of time, regardless of how long it's been between where you got started and where we are today. So, giving yourself the opportunity to have that time, to gain that experience, to build that confidence, and to learn how to be smart with your money, even if it means making mistakes. I didn't grow up with a family that was incredibly financially successful, right? And so, a lot of the things that I've had to learn over the years, it was trial, error, testing, looking for mentorship, finding different ways to be able to figure out what works for me. And I mean, would you agree it's been relatively the same for you, Jordan?
yeah, I grew up in a trailer home. I grew up in, in the struggle. And
Ice
it's not
cube
it's
sandwiches.
it's more of, this knowledge, this education, everything that we're learning, it gets passed down, and it didn't get passed down from, my parents. And I would say that their parents were more well off, but obviously they didn't do a good job of passing down, that understanding. And so, I'm hoping, and not really hoping it's gonna happen, but I'm gonna be passing it down to, my child, right? So it's a blessing, becoming financially literate, right? Because they don't teach us that. So, I'm blessed that we get to all learn and experience all this together, because what do we always say? We're always learning, we're always a student, and so we're always progressing and growing together.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. And, for those of you right now that are here, I think that this is a good point for us to be able to kind of transition into some of that Q&A. If you feel stuck, if you feel frustrated, if you feel like there's something that you're not having that light bulb click yet, ask away.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. So, at this point in time, I do not know where each and every single one of y'all are. And I believe that it doesn't matter what kind of question that you can ask. I think that both of us, off the top of our head, within seconds, can explain things in a different way. And it can be uh, in the charts, it can be in your head, So really take this time, everyone in the chat, and don't be shy. And if you are shy, then just, I think you can do it, right? You can like side message where no one can see it. just somehow get the message to us so that we can start taking notes. Because at least for me, I have no idea, what I'm even wanting to bring to y'all in California, and so I don't know what experience, what struggles, anything, and I really want to be able to um you know, not waste any time at all out there, with y'all, get right to the point and right to the breakthroughs, because that's what I really, really, truly believe that we can, help with y'all. One of our biggest breakthroughs at one of the events was when we first were showing Bitcoin order books, and it was just, it was game changing. Right? It's so game changing that I, believe that I can explain what's going on through one candle, seeing these little volume bars at the bottom, and just how that candle shifted and shaped itself. So it's like ask away so we can start taking notes and really getting into this. Um,
Yeah, and even if we don't get into a question tonight, I see the ones that have come through the chat already. And both those we will touch on right now. But even if we don't get to your question tonight, or maybe you don't even have a specific thing right now that comes to your mind, just remember that we really have the intention to make this training specific for you. We're coming out to your city for those of you that are in Cali at least. And so we really want to be able to make it specific for where you're at. All right. This isn't going to just be some random generic training where we get up there and we pull up a slideshow and it's, okay, here's this and here's that. No, because the reality is, we know that some of y'all have been around for a while. And yes, there are some specific things that we are going to ensure that everybody is on the same page with, right? Those foundational concepts that you just need to know. But like at the end of the day, when you think about this process, there's really not a one size fits all solution when it comes to being able to get over that plateau. Just with what you had mentioned in the chat, Bavik, when you felt like you had a plateau, what helped you break past that? For me, one of the biggest things that's helped me break past plateaus, whether that's within my trading or within another area, is getting active, doing something, making sure that I am continuing to progress, even if I don't feel like doing it just a little bit every single day towards a goal. And I think a really good example of this that I'll be able to share, not necessarily related to trading, but I think it's another one that many of you will be able to relate to, is the whole idea of what happens at New Year's. We make resolutions, right? New Year's comes around, woohoo, it's a brand new year. Let's make a goal to go out and do something. And for me, for the longest time, it was getting fit, getting healthy. What's the point of having wealth if you're not able to enjoy it with your health? And so for the longest time, I was inconsistent. And what I've come to learn and what I've come to realize is that how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you're not willing to put in the work, if you're not willing to really be honest with yourself, one of the biggest plateaus that I had in my trading during those first few years, what I had to do, what my solution was to overcome it was I sold my Xbox. I got rid of all distractions. I got rid of my games. And I said to myself, I'm not going to buy these again until I get to a point where I'm happy with how I trade. And it required me to make some changes to be able to overcome where it was that I was at. But what about you, Jordan? What's a plateau that you found yourself feeling stuck at one point? What helped you break past it? You're muted, by the way.
so define that, whoever asked that, plateau in what? Like you're stuck as far as just in general, plateau as far as in trading progress, plateau in as far as really what exactly? Um, that would be the thing. Because if it's as far as like stuck in trading, that becomes deeper as far as, what do you know on the technical fundamental side, or is it a inner, you know, yourself psychology kind of problem, right? Because this thing changed me. This thing made backwards, but trade's about to happen. A modern adaptation of the Wyckoff method. This thing in 2021, 2022 made me argue to the world that everyone was wrong in betting on 2022, and that was a bunch of where volume breakthroughs came from, so plateau wise, right? It's like where you really stuck at. Um,
Yeah, and I mean, in the meantime, we can transition to into something else here.
yeah.
If you were to pass, this is one that I think you'll be able to answer a little bit more effectively, just because I don't have children yet. But the question was, if you were to pass this information, smart money, investing, finance, so on and so forth, down to your child, how would you pass that information down? Is that something that you've thought about yet?
I mean, the goal is to raise her in the way of treating finance seriously, because first and foremost, I see it a lot in the media, like your really influential kind of people is I'm not going to be passing down my wealth to my family. I'm gonna give it all to charity. I just think that's like a whole, like why wouldn't you kind of thing? And is it like a driving control, media kind of thing to get people to not do that because that's how you become a problem in this world when you have a lot, right? But teach its own on that thought. But that's all it is everything that I know and learn from this point on until she grows up to the point to where she can understand, I start teaching it all to her. So everything that involves with everything, how to, you know, uh I don't know, live in that whatever way she's wanting to live, do whatever she's wanting to do, whatever career path support in that kind of way. But it doesn't matter what you do in life. The one thing that you got to be is financially literate. So anything that I can help in that way, that's my job. It's like I'm not raising a child, I'm raising an heir to pass down wealth to, So how can I make it to where she doesn't waste that. You see it in movies all the time. It's, how do I make it to where it's not a problem? Because it's like when you get access to insane cash flow or insane money, you have this peace of mind that's in the back of your head. And this can be a double-edged sword. This is one of the reasons why your why can't be money. And that was like my biggest thing that I was told and I argued with from everyone that's ever told me what's your why in a sense. And it was always money. Money, 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 money. But once you've made enough, uh and it's not even enough as far as it's like you as a person that decided what enough is that can give you that peace of mind. How do you react after that? Because you can go and stop trying. You can go and stop progressing. You start regressing, maybe even start going down a drug problem, a partying problem. It happens. I've seen so many people spiral out of control with that. You know what I mean? So it's like if I give her access to too much too fast and at the wrong time, can that happen? So it's like it's a lot of thought with that because it happens to everyone and everyone it's like every single hurdle or every single breakthrough of a new trade, of a new monthly gain, of a new yearly gain. It's like every every higher high is a test because maybe you can find yourself to like, oh, now I'm 25 years old, I'm 30 years old, I'm 40 years old. I've got X amount of money technically to where I don't have to do anything for the rest of my life. That thought of not having to do anything else for the rest of my life, I can live free on my terms. Now, what is free? What is your own terms? That's a devil's advocate right there. It can go both ways. And so, a, it's like you either can have purpose to fill this hole, or this hole can eat you away and you turn to escaping reality. And I promise it's a real thing. So, whatever I can learn, pour into her. She doesn't fumble the bag, perfect, and she doesn't go down that wrong path. And a lot of that can be influenced by bad people too. So how can I keep bad people away as well? So it's like I don't want to get too much into that, but that's technically every avenue that I can take to ensure that she's got the right brain thinking to be able to keep bad away and to keep on pursuing good.
Yeah, and I think you made a lot of great points that even for someone that doesn't have kids, maybe that's not something that you're thinking about right now. Maybe you're 18, 19, 20, 21, and you're learning the skill set right now, but you're trying to figure out what it is that you need to be doing. The best way to understand it is, how can you be in a position to help other people if you're not yet in a position where you're helping yourself? It's like when you're on an airplane and the first thing that they say is, in the event of an emergency, you got to put your mask on first. You have to be willing to pour in to yourself. You have to be willing to build yourself up, to learn the skills, to develop the habits, to gain the information so that you can be in a position to either pass that on to your friends, your family, your children, to the people that you love and care about, or to be able to just leverage it for yourself so you can get closer to creating that vision of what it is that you want for yourself. And I think that this ties in really nice with one of the next things that I wanted to dive into here real quick, because in my opinion this is a really simple one to answer, but the question was, what would you say should be the focus for someone that's a little bit more experienced in the markets who's looking to improve at smart money? And in my opinion, collect data. As I mentioned earlier, the more data that you have, like actually getting in there and analyzing your setups. I know that some of my biggest breakthroughs have not just come from going back and celebrating the wins. It's been going back and actually looking to see what it is that I missed, what it is that I didn't quite yet understand, what it is that wasn't so obvious within the losses. And by doing that time and time again, sometimes all that it takes is a very small tweak, whether it's in how you're framing your reward to risk, whether it's in the type of entries that you're looking for, whether it's within the emotional discipline that you have for when you decide to press the button. Those small tweaks can often make a significant difference. And so that would be my suggestion, to collect data and not just collect it, because it's easy to collect it, but to actually go and to analyze it and to look back in order to start making those changes. For that question, what was the hardest part about transitioning into a full-time trader without stressing for another trade? I think my input on this one is going to be the same as Jordan, but it's, not limiting yourself to just one stream of income, right? You need cash flow, regardless of if you want trading to be a primary source of income or not. Cash flow is going to make a big difference, because that stress that you're feeling of having to get on the charts and find a setup. I mean, hey, if you got a check coming in from here and a check coming in from there and other sources of income that can help supplement your trading, it makes it a lot easier, in my opinion. So I don't know if there's anything else that you want to touch on that one, Jordan, but
Yeah, it gets easier, because it's like if you think about it, you're going to have something that you have to essentially pay, and can that thought be in the back of your head, you know? And so it's like as time goes on, your net worth grows. When you like I want to be a full-time trader. It's like, what does that really mean? Do I just let go of everything else and my sole focus is trading? Cool. My sole focus is trading. I got to make X amount because I have nothing backing me, or do I have a backing? If I have a backing, it becomes easier because not everyone ever has solid, constant weeks, months, you know what I mean? And so it just becomes easier over time with the larger backing just because of settling your mind of just in case. Um, and so like you said, cash flow can help. Like I like to develop things. I like to invest in other things. It's not like I just show up, day trade, that's it, for that kind of thing. It's your majority of people that do this stuff for a living, they got wealthy off of holding and doing nothing. You know what I mean? So it's like day trading is just a way to get reps and to generate, cash flow in some sort of way. You can make some, you can lose some, you can make a lot, you can lose a lot, but when this is like one thing that I really want everyone here to really understand. You want to trade everything. You want to do everything. And what that means is, there's certain assets and there's certain avenues that you can invest into, right? If you've been following us, we caught a lot of them, but you invest into them because companies grow. They always will. If the world is backed by capitalism, companies will grow. There's always a place everywhere to put your money that's going to outperform something else. It's tons of markets. It's our job to figure that out. You know what I mean? And so we do that and we find the best place to park money, which is somebody else's question about the bear market. It's just like I said, there's always a place at some point in time to park your money that's going to outperform somewhere else. After we hit all-time highs, it's a guessing game. It's the same thing as, when price was traveling down. I was explaining this, if I forgot on what call, but when Bitcoin was falling from 63, 62K blow off top all the way down to 15K, I remember being in chats with people and everyone was just guessing how low it was going to go. It was just a big old guessing game, but it's just like you don't know until signs start showing up. It's the same thing as it goes up. We don't know until signs start showing up. And we'll see that through, you know, big media euphoric posts, maybe rate cuts, maybe the last leg. I don't know. Volume can show signs. There'll be signs, but there's always going to be a place to park money that's going to outperform something else. So it's your job to grow your net worth. That is all this is. It is not a job. You're not showing up here to do this for a living in that sense. Your goal at the end of the day is to grow your net worth. Sometimes you can have bad months, bad weeks, maybe even a bad year and get caught off guard. I don't know. But if you have nothing to back you, you might throw yourself off into like a panicking kind of way, into a way that blows you up. You don't want to ever get to that point. So, how can I park money in places to give me income, dividend wise? You have Patrick Kinney, you can follow him. He can sit there and just feed you money selling puts all day. It's just another source of income in trading. There's many different avenues, way of making funds when it comes to these markets. But what I really want to instill to you is your goal is to learn it all because sometimes one side can perform better than the other. And it is a good feeling and when you can hold things that are making money while trading off the collateral to make money, while some things sell off and now I can take advantage of that and make money. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, that's your goal, is to grow your net worth, and never get into that. It's like the same thing. Warren Buffett got rich off of what? Just holding. You know, did a lot of people like him, they don't just invest and hold, they do acquisitions of companies. You know what I mean? Like you're not just a trader. No one here is just a trader. You are an investor at the end of the day, and your goal is to grow a net worth. Plain and simple. You don't want to just favor one. You want to do it all because everything that we teach and we study is the same thing in every single asset. And there's always a better place to park your money. Somewhere is outperforming somewhere else, and it is our job to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that's one of the best things about this community, in my opinion, having other people, because the reality is it is very difficult to stay on top of it all by yourself, especially when you start factoring in the everyday life stuff that we all have to deal with, right? We all have responsibilities. We all have things we have to do that don't involve the charts and that don't involve the markets. All right. So it's allowing yourself to really take advantage of what you have access to. And I think that the last thing that I want to dive into for tonight, at least, there was a question that I was having a conversation about this the other day with some people, but the question was any advice on how to manage fear of missing out? Seeing how ETH and other coins are growing, there's that itching feeling of, oh, I could have bought at this price. And I'm sure that every one of us here has felt that, whether you are feeling it right now or whether you felt it at a previous point in time. That feeling of, man, did I miss it? I could have got it lower. I should have bought more. I want to give you some perspective because right now, entire crypto market, if we can factor in every single crypto asset, the big ones, BTC, ETH, Solana, XRP, all of it, total market cap right now is just under 3.9 trillion. Okay, so keep that number in mind, 3.9 trillion. We've got the Forex market, currencies, over 7.5 trillion in volume a day. So already, when we think about currencies compared to crypto, the entire industry, half the size of the foreign exchange, what they do in a single day. Not only that, but if this is really something that we're going to see stick around with all these different bills and legislations and things that they're passing within government right now, not just within the US, but throughout various countries inside of the world, we are at a point right now where we're seeing large players, BlackRock, Vanguard, like we're talking about the biggest financial giants that we know of coming into these markets and starting to do things like make ETFs, starting to make things more accessible for the people that are already retired, that really don't want anything to do with it, but they have money to invest. We're seeing the infrastructure get created right now to be able to enable more liquidity to come into these markets. And if you really think about it, if we talk about just one entity in particular, BlackRock, and we're going to dive deep into this with the whole what I want to talk about at least at the workshop. But BlackRock, as of today, they got around 11 trillion assets that they manage. Okay, $11 trillion. That's one. We'll just say it's an entity. Now they've got a Bitcoin ETF. The ETF, it opened at like $40 a share. It's trading. It closed at like 68 today. So you're telling me that an entity that has around $11 trillion in assets under management, 4 times more assets that they manage than the entire crypto industry, has a way now for anybody to go through the stock market route where, yeah, you don't get the benefit of self custody, but you can easily get involved and get invested in the crypto side of things. And their ETF, the shares are trading for $25 more than they opened at. Why couldn't it go to 500, 600, $700 a share? Not something that's going to happen overnight, but just thinking bigger than where the market is currently at. The industry is still a baby. The last cycle, we didn't have as much direction, and we were still able to identify some really, really amazing opportunities. And I think we're going to see more of that. What that looks like, though, it's going to be different this time around because it's a different game. We've got governments that are involved. We've got the banking system that it feels like any day they're going to flip the switch and start throwing offers down your throat to, put your crypto here with us. We'll custody it for you and we'll give you a 20% bonus. Like, we are literally at that stage where it is still, in my opinion, from the industry perspective, very, very early. And so the question is, like what Jordan was mentioning, where are those opportunities going to come into play? And we got a pretty good track record of finding them. We can't force them though. And so all that we can do is we can still plug in every single day. We can still learn every single day. We can still leverage the community every single day. And that's my perspective for those of you that are feeling FOMO right now, that are feeling like, man, I missed it. You know what? If you're looking to position yourself in this space, what's a 10% correction or a 20% correction? If the whole idea is to build a position, to average yourself in, to hold it so that it can in turn help grow your wealth. Day trading it, that's a completely different conversation. But if you align with the bigger vision of this, and we're talking about crypto here as just the example, but if you align yourself with that bigger vision of what the industry could be and how this isn't just a fad, it's literally going to change the way that we use money. Why care? I'll never forget the argument that we had back when we were first investing in Sandbox and we were trading in that range from like 3 to 5 cents. And we were just like, you know what? Does it even freaking matter if we're buying it for 3 pennies or 5 pennies if we think it's going to $1? Does it really make a difference? You got to maintain that perspective. And that's going to help you with the FOMO.
Hmm. I just found this little uh I'm very technology illiterate, I swear. Um here's for someone who asked, uh think about this. For, how do you not get burnt out, doing this? I would say you can feel burnt out day trading. That requires a lot more mental fatigue, that's a whole different beast of its own. You're having to stay paying attention. You really do. What opportunities can I find? I'm constantly having to look. Day trading is a whole different conversation, like what Zach said. But everything else, this is just a lifestyle. You know what I mean? So, not being burnt out on that, if you just accept that, for one, I'm sure you've heard it, you get what you think about most of the time. So it's like if I'm always paying attention to what's going around, to what's being fed to me anyway, because I can build my algorithms on social media to feed me certain things, right? If it's finance companies, certain pages that are super popular and always wrong, I can build my algorithm around that. What do I consume on TV in a sense? Am I paying attention to CNBC and stock? I can watch people. What do they talk about? What do they gravitate to in the capitalism world? So it's like it's really easy to get what you're thinking about most of the time when it involves this. Where can I put my next dollar in that's going to win because people are addicted to this. People are talking about this. Way too many people are saying bias towards this, and you can fade it, So, as far as how that goes, make it a lifestyle choice because it does not matter what you're going to do in life. Everyone has the same thought process when it comes to peace of mind and retirement. So, your money's got to do something. So, if I accept this, then I'll always think about it in a sense. Now, as far as day trading goes, there's never a time to where you'll 100% be like 100% mental clarity and rested. You're going to get burnt out from time to time. It happens, So don't think I don't get burnt out. There's times there's times where I'll get lazy because I did so well maybe at the beginning of the week. Well, I don't want to do anything for the rest of the week. And the rest of the week printed so many better trades than it did at the beginning of the week. And because of my laziness of accepting, oh, okay, I did well in my opinion, I'm fine. And then you miss the easier trades, the better trades that could have done more. But it's accepting that, so it's like don't ever think it doesn't happen. And then, going from withdrawal to not clicking anymore. The markets are constantly adapting as well. So things that might have worked so much in the past might not work in the future. And it really just revolves around cycles. Maybe you're so good at range trading and now we're trending. Maybe you're so good at trending and we're ranging. Everything is changing in cycles wise. So it's like everything's adapting. You just got to keep up with it. So don't ever think don't ever beat yourself up for potentially getting stuck or potentially getting beat up in the market. It happens. And that comes back to what I was saying, last time I spoke. If you're wanting to make this a main source of income just on the day trading side, sometimes you're going to get beat up. Can your backing take care of that? Maybe there's something you need to tweak. And this is where what Zachary was saying, collecting data matters because there might be something itty bitty in there that you don't even notice because you don't even think about it really after the trade is done. Maybe you're just pissed off, but because you're not collecting the data, you're never going to find that little tweak that'll change maybe a 10-15% win to loss ratio. So it's like that is the number one thing is to collect data on yourself. That's why I love what we do because I get to live journal every day. You've heard the saying, you can only collect so much knowledge from, being taught and taking notes, but you'll collect more and learn more by teaching somebody else. I'm blessed. I get to teach y'all every day, which teaches myself every day because I get to live journal every day. It's the same thing on the reasons why on the course now that I do a weekly walkthrough of things that were missed, things that were called, things that we could have done better. Now I get to put out my own personal weekly journal, weekly walkthrough. It's my journal, technically, and y'all get to learn from it. I get to learn from it too from making it. You know what I mean? It's perfect. It's perfect. I love this. It's perfect. So I'm obsessed with it, and I never think that I don't know everything. Like I never think that I know everything because I don't. Constantly learning, because the markets are constantly adapting. So I get to live journal. So if I'm journaling, why aren't you? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hey, I'm journaling still too to this day,
Oh,
right? It's those small things that make a big difference. And I've made note of pretty much everything that came through the chat. Um, but I think that's all the questions that I want to dive into tonight. I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to share, but I definitely look forward to seeing y'all out in Cali. It's going to be a fun time. We're going to be diving deep, and I'm excited to see some of those light bulb moments happen.
good on my end. And since it really wasn't done much in the chat, I'll ask y'all again. Um, so y'all have got like 2 weeks, I guess, right?